The Upachaya houses, Conscious Growth with Time, Gemini Rising, Part 1. From Thought to Strategy, where curiosity learns discipline and expression finds application. For Gemini Rising, the Upachaya houses, 3rd, 6th, 10th, and 11th, represent an evolutionary ladder from restless questioning to refined contribution. Ruled by Mercury, Gemini thrives on learning, speaking, and adaptability. Yet in these houses of effort and delayed reward, this airy dual sign must ground its brilliance in form, routine, and social relevance. Each Upachaya house becomes a training ground for turning scattered energy into skill and curiosity into commitment. As the mercurial soul travels from personal effort to collective achievement, it must surrender shallow multitasking for deep mastery. The 3rd house, Leo. Expressive will, the voice's power and courage with identity activated. Ages 3, 15, 27, 39, 51, 63, 75. With Leo in the 3rd house, Gemini Rising brings charisma to communication. This is a place where early skills are tied to self-worth. Speech is not just exchange, it's performance. Gemini's natural love for words meets Leo's need for recognition, making for a dramatic, bold communicator. There is a gift here for inspiring others through speech, performance, writing, or leadership in educational settings. Yet the challenge lies in over-identifying with one's opinions or needing applause to act. Sibling rivalry may shape early expressions of courage. With age, Gemini learns that true confidence isn't loud, it's steady. When this house is integrated, the native becomes a persuasive teacher, a storyteller who commands attention not through ego, but through authentic self-expression. The 6th house, Scorpio, intensity in routine, silent battles, and power through discipline, activated ages 6, 18, 30, 42, 54, 66, 78. Scorpio in the 6th brings depth and intensity to the most mundane arenas: work, health, habits, and conflict. Gemini Rising must face emotional and psychological patterns in their everyday life. Here, Mercury's quickness must meet Scorpio's need for transformation. This results in a person who must learn to focus through emotional chaos, to work through crisis, and to serve with secrecy and depth. In early life, this may show up as health anxieties, psychological power struggles at work, or an obsessive need to prove oneself. But with maturity, this house produces powerful healers, researchers, or therapists, those who transmute conflict into clarity. Discipline becomes a sacred act, and healing a strategic mission. The 10th house, Pisces, visionary purpose, surrendered authority, and intuition in the public eye. Activated ages, 10, 22, 34, 46, 58, 70, 82. With Pisces ruling the 10th house, Gemini Rising seeks a vocation that merges intellect with imagination. This is not a chart of one who climbs the ladder for status alone. Their true public contribution lies in serving ideals, uplifting others through teaching, counseling, or artistic careers. Yet in youth, they may struggle with career direction, distracted by possibilities, or discouraged by unclear goals. The challenge of Pisces in the 10th is to ground the dream. Gemini must learn that career is not about escaping responsibility, but about anchoring vision into structure. Over time, they are called to lead from empathy, whether in spiritual institutions, educational platforms, or media rooted in human upliftment. Fame is possible, but it must serve the soul's higher calling. The 11th house, Aries, individualistic gains, bold friendships, and direct desire activated ages, 11, 23, 35, 47, 59, 71, 83. Aries in the 11th house fuels Gemini Rising with ambition for leadership within networks and a strong drive toward tangible gains. This house activates a need to conquer goals, often through rapid experimentation and competitive spirit. Friends are catalysts, rivals, or pioneering figures. Group dynamics may be charged with assertiveness or impatience. This is not a subtle social environment. Gemini Rising must learn how to work with assertive allies and how to claim their own desires clearly. Early friction in friend circles refines their social intelligence. With time, this placement grants the courage to take initiative in community leadership, start movements, or innovate fearlessly. When balanced, the thinker becomes the trailblazer. In summary, the Upachaya houses for Gemini Rising challenge airy intellect to meet fire, water, and spirit. Leo in the third ignites the voice with purpose. Scorpio in the sixth demands discipline through emotional endurance. Pisces in the 10th calls for surrendered leadership. And Aries in the 11th rewards bold, direct action. Through each house, Gemini learns that curiosity alone is not enough. It must evolve into contribution. Only then does the mind truly serve its highest function, not just to question, but to create something lasting from the answers. The Upachaya houses, Conscious Growth with Time, Gemini Rising, Part 2. 8 most defining conjunctions in the Upachaya houses, where thought becomes strategy and expression gains structure. For Gemini Rising, the Upachaya houses, 3rd, 6th, 10th, and 11th, mark the journey from mental speed to disciplined execution. These houses shape how Mercury's curiosity matures into contribution. With Leo, Scorpio, Pisces, and Aries occupying these houses respectively, Gemini Rising is called to develop creative courage, psychological resilience, intuitive vocation, and pioneering group presence. But it is the planetary conjunctions within these houses that act as karmic ignition points, elevating or obstructing their ability to grow consciously over time. Sun plus Mercury in the third, the royal communicator or the opinionated performer. This conjunction in Leo amplifies Gemini Rising's natural love for language into bold self-expression. When benefic, it creates a commanding speaker, charismatic teacher, or influential writer. Communication becomes identity. Yet if afflicted, it leads to inflexibility in thought, ego conflicts with siblings, or the habit of mistaking volume for value. Growth emerges when they learn to let the light of reason outshine the shadow of pride. Sun plus Venus in the third, the graceful orator or the validation-seeking voice. This adds warmth, beauty, and charm to communication. Gemini Rising with this yoga may excel in media, performing arts, or roles involving diplomacy and aesthetics. Early life may bring popularity through speech, but if afflicted, it leads to emotional over-identification with praise. Their evolution begins when they value the impact of their voice, not just its applause. Mars plus Mercury in the sixth, the tactical mind or the overstimulated striver. In Scorpio, this potent mix of logic and drive turns Gemini into a natural crisis manager. Whether in healing, law, or competition, they think fast and act faster. But when afflicted, it results in obsessive work habits, anxiety-driven productivity, or mental fatigue from constant inner pressure. Wisdom unfolds when they realize not all problems need to be solved instantly, and that silence can be as strategic as speech. Moon Ketu in the sixth, the invisible healer or the emotionally drained worker. This pairing makes Gemini Rising highly sensitive to others' emotional undercurrents at work. They may be drawn to subtle healing arts, spiritual caregiving, or intuitive medicine. But early in life, they may struggle with boundaries, psychosomatic health issues, or feeling unseen in service. Their karmic breakthrough lies in learning to serve from a centered space, not a sacrificial one. Jupiter Sun in the 10th, the visionary leader or the idealism-burdened achiever. In Pisces, this conjunction gifts Gemini Rising with spiritual authority, ethical leadership, and the urge to inspire through public work. Their reputation grows when they live their principles, but afflicted, it creates inflated expectations, career escapism, or overextension. Purpose takes shape when they surrender outcomes and serve the calling, not just the cause. Venus plus Mercury in the 10th, the creative mentor or the dispersed visionary. This beautiful yoga brings elegance, harmony, and intellect to Gemini's career. They may lead through art, education, wellness, or refined communication. If immature, however, they may struggle to ground their many gifts into one clear path. Career becomes the stage for mental and aesthetic experimentation, until maturity focuses them on inspiring with clarity, not just versatility. Mars Rahu in the 11th, the fierce networker or the unstable crusader. In Aries, this conjunction fuels Gemini's social ambition with an explosive mix of innovation and impatience. They may lead digital movements, start communities, or chase fast gains through risk-taking. But afflicted, it breeds erratic alliances, inflated desires, or aggression within groups. Grounded power comes when they learn to lead without dominating and channel courage into collective upliftment. Sun plus Moon in the 11th, the charismatic unifier or the approval-seeking idealist. This luminary fusion makes Gemini Rising glow in social spheres. They become magnetic in friend circles, trusted by allies, and visionary in group dynamics. But when afflicted, they blur personal desires with social validation, exhausting themselves for belonging. Integration begins when they realize that they don't need to match every tribe, they just need to radiate from within. In summary, for Gemini Rising, the Upachaya houses are where mind meets mastery. Leo in the third tests their confidence and self-expression. Scorpio in the sixth forges endurance through psychological discipline. Pisces in the 10th invites surrender to soul-aligned career. And Aries in the 11th demands fearless action toward collective dreams. Each conjunction adds its own edge or elegance to this journey, revealing whether Gemini Rising will scatter brilliance or shape it into legacy. Growth is not about knowing more, it's about channeling what they know into what the world needs. The Upachaya houses, Conscious Growth with Time, Gemini Rising Part 3. The sixth house, Scorpio, Shadow Work and Service, Power and Repetition, and Discipline through Depth, where the mercurial mind must find focus through feeling. For Gemini Rising, the sixth house of effort, illness, debt, and daily routine falls in Scorpio, ruled by Mars, and co-ruled by Ketu. This is a house of conflict, purification, and karmic adjustment. And here, Mercury's quicksilver energy is pulled into Scorpio's depth, secrecy, and psychological gravity. While Gemini prefers to observe and verbalize, Scorpio demands that it transform and endure. In this house, the mercurial mind is forced to descend from intellect into instinct. This house is not solved with cleverness. It is only mastered through emotional intelligence, energetic resilience, and fearless repetition. And it is often activated through crises that expose the nervous system, disrupt the routine, or force Gemini into healing roles they didn't expect, but eventually embody with great power. Let's examine the defining conjunctions in Scorpio that shape how Gemini Rising grows through this Upachaya house of internal strength. Mars plus Mercury, the strategic fighter or the razor-edged warrior. This sharp combination binds logic and aggression in a house of conflict. When benefic, it makes Gemini Rising formidable in analytics, law, investigation, or health sciences, quick to diagnose, fix, and respond. But when afflicted, it creates mental tension, acidic speech, or internalized rage. Work becomes war. Health breaks down under stress. The lesson lies in harnessing intellect to diffuse intensity, not inflame it. Power grows when silence is chosen over speed. Mars plus Moon, the crisis nurse, or the subconscious reactor. This emotionally charged pairing brings passionate service but emotional volatility. Gemini Rising may be a natural crisis manager, able to care, rescue, or protect with focus and strength. Yet if immature, this leads to sudden burnout, mood-dependent work habits, or health issues linked to emotional repression. Healing begins when they learn to tend to their own body's signals as skillfully as they serve others. Ketu's Mercury, the silent researcher or the obsessive analyzer. Here, intellect turns inward. Gemini Rising becomes introspective, drawn to hidden knowledge, esoteric healing, or behind-the-scenes problem-solving. Their brilliance lies in uncovering patterns others miss. But afflicted, this can lead to social withdrawal, obsessive perfectionism, or communication blocks. Clarity blooms when they accept silence not as emptiness, but as space where their finest insights land. Saturn-Mercury, the methodical healer or the overburdened servant. This pairing lends structure and precision to Gemini's mental energy. It's excellent for professions requiring method, technical depth, and consistent effort, like medicine, research, or policy work. But it can also bring mental heaviness, rigid routines, and self-critical thoughts. When mature, they become unshakable in chaos, reliable in crisis. But first, they must forgive their flaws and honor their pace. Venus plus Mars, the healing artist or the beautiful resistor. This blend of desire and grace brings magnetism into the service sphere. Gemini Rising may serve through touch, movement, design, or bodywork. They work with intensity and passion, but with the potential for internal friction when aesthetics conflict with discipline. Early life may show avoidance of dirty work. Maturity reveals the sacredness in beautifying the dark, softening the sharp, and committing to grace under pressure. Jupiter plus Moon, the emotional wisdom worker or the overgiver. This conjunction brings nurturing expansion. Gemini Rising may take on mentorship, healing roles, or nurturing professions, especially in mental health, social work, or intuitive healing. But when afflicted, it creates emotional overwhelm, fatigue from overextending, or unrealistic optimism in crisis. Wisdom is found in honoring emotional cycles and serving from wholeness, not obligation. Rahu plus Mars, the workaholic rebel or the strategic reformer. This volatile conjunction fuels Gemini rising with fierce will to win in everyday battles. They're relentless in tasks, radical in solutions, and often seen as disruptors in service or healing industries. But Rahu's intensity and Mars's fire may lead to impulsiveness, workplace drama, or adrenal burnout. True strength arises when they temper urgency with insight and fight battles that actually matter. Moon plus Venus, the empathic servant or the habitual people pleaser. This sensitive and aesthetic combo creates someone who brings comfort through care, whether it's in caregiving, therapy, or wellness routines. But afflicted, it leads to emotional enmeshment, neglect of self-care, or passive avoidance of necessary conflict. Gemini rising must learn to love without losing energy and serve without self-erasure. In summary, Scorpio in the 6th house forces Gemini rising to trade stimulation for stillness, cleverness for commitment, and multitasking for soul-level service. The mind must go deep here, not wide. These conjunctions reveal how they meet challenge, with avoidance or transformation, scattered reaction, or surgical action. Growth lies in choosing depth over distraction and realizing that their healing comes not from solving, but from staying. Through daily rituals, focused effort, and sacred struggle, Gemini rising becomes not just clever, but truly capable. The Upachaya houses Conscious Growth with Time, Gemini Rising Part 4. The 10th house, Pisces, Vision and Vocation, Leadership through Surrender, and Recognition through Higher Service. Where the mercurial mind must ground intuition and let soul direct strategy. For Gemini rising, the 10th house, Karma Bhava, the peak of visibility and worldly contribution, falls in Pisces, ruled by Jupiter and co-ruled classically by Ketu. This is where Mercury, the ruler of Gemini, enters its most confusing terrain, a world of faith, formlessness, and divine flow. Pisces is imaginative, emotional, and nonlinear, unlike Gemini's sharp, rational, and data-driven nature. And yet, this house demands that Gemini rise not just through logic, but through purpose that transcends explanation. Here, success is not calculated, it is surrendered into. Gemini must learn to let the heart lead the head, without losing their voice in the process. In youth, this often brings career confusion, dreamy detachment, or cycles of inspiration and burnout. But in maturity, it gives Gemini rising the rare gift of spiritualized leadership, guiding others through education, healing, art, or compassionate strategy. Let's explore the conjunctions in Pisces that determine how Gemini rising matures in their public karma. Sun's Jupiter, the uplifted mentor or the idealistic manager. This is a radiant yoga for dharmic leadership. It gives Gemini rising charisma in public life, a strong moral compass, and a desire to lead through wisdom or service. They may rise in education, healing, nonprofits, or spiritual institutions. But when afflicted, it inflates ego under the veil of righteousness or leads to overextension from trying to save too much. Maturity comes when they guide with humility and embody what they preach. Sun plus Venus, the artist executive or the image-bound idealist. This pairing brings beauty, refinement, and diplomacy into public roles. Gemini rising may thrive in creative industries, branding, arts education, or spiritual aesthetics. When integrated, it creates a graceful public presence and magnetism. But if unevolved, it brings vanity, performance-based self-worth, or passive avoidance of difficult responsibility. True growth happens when they blend outer poise with inner clarity and stop confusing approval with value. Jupiter plus Moon, the visionary leader or the sentimental idealist. This yoga brings emotional wisdom and visionary compassion to public life. Gemini rising becomes a nurturer of communities, a spiritual guide, or a policy reformer with heart. Yet in early life, this can create indecisiveness, lack of boundaries in professional roles, or vulnerability to being emotionally used. Their evolution lies in grounding their empathy with clear vision, knowing when to feel and when to lead. Venus-Mercury, the refined communicator or the career wanderer, a powerful conjunction for writers, designers, educators, or diplomats in the public eye. This yoga enhances Gemini's gifts, making them articulate, attractive, and intellectually elegant. But in Pisces, it can also lead to career indecision, scattered interests, or over-idealized goals. Growth dawns when they choose purpose over variety, when their expression serves meaning, not just motion. Ketu plus Moon, the detached professional or the subconscious contributor. This karmic pairing can make Gemini rising emotionally distant from worldly ambition, preferring behind-the-scenes roles or spiritually oriented careers. They may carry unresolved public karma or feel unseen in their contributions. But in maturity, this becomes a gift for quiet mastery, the monk-like leader who doesn't need a crown to influence kingdoms. Mars-Jupiter, the inspired achiever or the zealous escapist. This is a fiery, expansive blend that gives great drive to build something meaningful. Gemini rising becomes action-oriented in spiritual, philosophical, or educational spheres. But afflicted, it brings burnout, unrealistic goal-chasing, or aggressive idealism. Mastery arises when they temper ambition with surrender, realizing that they're meant to serve, not control, their mission. Rahu plus Sun, the charismatic figurehead or the recognition-addicted visionary. This combination can catapult Gemini rising into fame through eccentric leadership, viral ideas, or bold spiritual messaging. It brings charm and unpredictability in equal measure. But it also carries the shadow of ego inflation, disconnection from authentic purpose, or using spiritual language as branding. Their evolution depends on whether they seek to shine or seek to serve. Mercury plus Saturn, the administrative mystic or the cynical strategist. In Pisces, this conjunction creates a mind that thinks deeply, slowly, and often abstractly. It is a powerful placement for systems-based leadership in creative or spiritual institutions. But it can also create pessimism, paralysis through analysis, or professional detachment. Gemini rising matures when they learn to use structure to anchor intuition, turning fog into form. In summary, Pisces in the 10th house is where Gemini rising learns to serve a vision larger than the self. It is where the logical path dissolves into spiritual vocation, and where the voice becomes a vessel for wisdom, not just information. These conjunctions shape whether their public life becomes a mirror of ego or a platform for elevation. When integrated, Gemini rising becomes the translator of unseen truths, not just successful but significant. The Upachaya houses, Conscious Growth with Time, Gemini Rising, Part 5. The 11th house, Aries, bold networks, direct desires, and the will to create collective impact, where the mercurial mind must act with fire and lead the vision with courage. For Gemini rising, the 11th house of long-term goals, gains, networks, and collective karma falls in Aries, ruled by Mars. This marks a sharp turn from Pisces in the 10th, where career required surrender and soul alignment. In the 11th, the pace shifts, fast, bold, competitive. Aries demands that Gemini stop planning and start leading, especially within groups, communities, and visionary projects. This is not a passive house for Gemini. It ignites ambition, activates the will to influence, and tests whether their dreams are pure thought or executable vision. It teaches that the best ideas mean nothing if not acted upon, and that social gain is not always built through diplomacy, but sometimes through direct action. Let's examine the conjunctions in Aries that define how Gemini rising matures their vision, leads communities, and manifests meaningful gain. Mars plus Mercury, the strategic commander or the combust communicator. This conjunction gives Gemini rising quick strategic instincts, strong leadership potential, and the ability to rally groups around innovative ideas. It suits entrepreneurs, campaigners, and digital pioneers. But when afflicted, it results in impatience with teamwork, argumentative tone, or burning bridges in moments of reactive speech. Their power deepens when they channel fire through clarity, not combustion, and when they realize that leadership is about direction, not domination. Mars plus Sun, the visionary pioneer or the isolated hero. This solar martial blend makes Gemini rising fiercely independent in their pursuit of goals. They may rise as individualistic trailblazers in tech, media, or social innovation. But early on, it can create ego conflicts in groups or an inability to compromise. Evolution begins when they realize that real leadership isn't about standing apart, it's about standing for. They must learn to unify without controlling and to act without alienating. Venus plus Mars, the magnetic motivator or the charm-driven competitor. This combination brings social magnetism, persuasive drive, and attraction in group spaces. Gemini rising may become influential through charm, aesthetics, or sensual presence, gaining through art, style, or audience engagement. But if imbalanced, this leads to seeking gains through popularity contests or emotionally volatile collaborations. Growth happens when they learn to balance diplomacy with direction and to express beauty with bravery. Moon plus Mars, the emotional reformer or the impulsive idealist. This fiery emotional conjunction creates passionate activism, spontaneous leadership, and intuitive movement in collective affairs. Gemini rising may feel a deep personal investment in their causes, but if afflicted, can burn out quickly or feel emotionally reactive in groups. Maturity comes when they learn to temper emotion with planning and feel without fragmenting. Leading from the heart works best when the head stays calm. Rahu plus Mars, the disruptive innovator or the volatile crusader. This explosive combination can catapult Gemini rising into fame through tech, entrepreneurship, or social revolution. They're bold, experimental, and eager to challenge norms. But Rahu's hunger combined with Mars' heat can create instability in groups or obsession with victory. Their evolution depends on whether they build systems or just shake them. Progress is real when they fight for purpose, not attention. Sun plus Mercury, the group strategist, or the recognition-seeking thinker. This intellectual duo offers Gemini rising the power to influence groups through speech, clarity, and bold thought leadership. They are idea generators with natural social visibility. But when immature, this leads to overtalking, needing constant affirmation, or pushing ideas before they're fully formed. Mastery begins when they listen as intently as they speak and use thought to elevate others, not just impress them. Jupiter plus Mars, the vision builder or the idealistic instigator. This pairing gives Gemini rising the momentum to actualize collective ideals. They can become motivators, fundraisers, or founders of impactful initiatives, combining philosophy with practicality. But if misaligned, this results in preaching without building or launching without structure. Growth lies in anchoring idealism in daily effort and remembering that movements are marathons, not sprints. Moon plus Venus, the charismatic collaborator or the sentimental influencer. This soft and graceful conjunction makes Gemini rising emotionally attractive in social spaces. They may attract support, followers, or allies through kindness, creativity, and a sense of belonging. But afflicted, it creates dependency on approval or avoidance of necessary confrontation in group dynamics. Their strength grows when they offer warmth without needing it returned, and when love for community includes boundaries as beauty. In summary, Aries in the 11th house teaches Gemini rising that thought alone does not manifest change, will does. It is not enough to dream about impact. One must act on it, claim it, and lead it. These conjunctions show whether Gemini will use their voice to unite or to dominate, whether their ambitions serve a personal ego or a greater cause. The true Upachaya gain here is not just social recognition, but the courage to lead for something greater than the self. When integrated, Gemini rising becomes the mind that moves mountains, not just maps them.